Guys, welcome back to this is day 4 of the sectionalism era, and we're moving towards the Civil War, which I'm excited about because that's my favorite era in American history. So I'm excited to get to that. So anyway, day 4, the first part is about slave revolts, as you can see here, slave revolts. So the first one, this happened in 1831. This guy named Nat Turner, he was a slave. He was a preacher. He was one of those people, kind of like John Brown, who we'll talk about here in a second. He believed that God spoke to him and told him to rebel, and I want to say he got like 60 or 70 other slaves to join his rebellion, and it was successful, I guess, in that it killed people, slave owners. What's tragic is the first victims of this slave rebellion were the guy that Nat Turner was working for. I don't think he was actually his slave. I think he was kind of being loaned to this guy. But he killed him, his wife, his 9-year-old kid, son, I think, and an infant. But they went and killed the infant in the crib. So, yeah. Not super great. Eventually, he and his followers were trapped and put on trial. They were captured and put on trial, and they were executed, of course. And what's sad is it led to the killing of other slaves. Like, Southerners were now super paranoid because they heard about the Nat Turner thing, and they're like, uh-oh, I'm going to keep a closer eye on my slaves, and as a result, they were harsher with the punishments for slaves. So that's probably, once again, if you were there and watched the Harriet Tubman movie, that's why they were so harsh to them. And, they talked about the beatings and stuff. It's partially because of Nat Turner. They were paranoid and they took it out on the slaves, which is horrible. So that's the Nat Turner Rebellion. The one that's really going to impact the Civil War is John Brown, who, remember, he's the guy that went to Kansas with his sons. He had he had bought some army surplus swords, those little short swords, that the army didn't really use them. They were more ceremonial, but he certainly used them. Remember, he hacked apart 5 people along Pottawatomie Creek. So he never got caught for it, and he plans on a bigger raid. He wants to free the slaves in the South, which is a great goal. It's just it doesn't go very good for him. So John Brown gets a group of about 20 people together, and they go down to Harper's Ferry, Virginia, which had an arsenal, which is where they produce weapons. That's why Harper's Ferry is actually it's going to be fought over several times in the Civil War because it has a place to produce firearms. So that's his goal. He wants to take over Harper's Ferry. He's going to send out messages to the countryside. The slaves will turn against their masters, kill them, and then go to Harper's Ferry. He'll give them guns, and he'll start a slave army. That's his goal. In his head, it sounds great. It's going to work. In practice, it doesn't go so good. In fact, he asked Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass to join him in his rebellion, in this attack on Harper's Ferry. And Harriet Tubman was sick, I think, at the time, and Frederick Douglass was just like, no, I don't think this is going to work. So yeah, I'm out. No thanks. You go ahead, John Brown. Yeah. God is telling him to go free the slaves. And okay, sure. So yeah, John Brown, he does capture Harper's Ferry. Ironically, the first guy he kills was a free black man, a freed slave. Or maybe he wasn't a freed slave, but he was a free man. But they told him to freeze, and he was like, "Nah," and he tried to escape, and they shot him in the back. So it's kind of ironic. But anyway, like, nobody really shows up. Estimates are about 30 people showed up for his slave army. A lot of them didn't know how to use guns. So imagine, the militia from the town start showing up. And so he's trying to teach these guys how to load and shoot a gun while dodging bullets and stuff. So they retreat to the firehouse right here. That's where the fire department would be. And that's where he kind of holds out until a battalion of Marines shows up under the command of Colonel Robert E. Lee, who will be pretty important during the Civil War. And yeah, you can see this picture here. This is the Marines busting down the door of the firehouse. And his sons are killed. John Brown's sons are killed. John Brown is taken alive, and he's put on trial. And of course, he's found guilty of treason, and he is executed. They hang him. So, sorry, this chair is kind of uncomfortable. So yeah, in the South, John Brown is a traitor, and he's the devil, and everybody hates him. In the North, in some places, especially to the abolitionists, he is a saint. Like, oh, John Brown. You know, they write a song about him called John Brown's Body, which we'll talk about it later, but you'll recognize the tune, right? It's da 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 da. Yeah, that's the tune of John Brown's Body, which they're going to change the words to later, and it becomes the Battle Hymn of the Republic, but we'll get to that later. Anyway, so yeah, for the South, this right here that's it. The South is done. It's going to take one more little thing, and the South is going to be ready to secede. So, and that one event is going to be the 1860 election of Abraham Lincoln. All right, so Abraham Lincoln runs as a Republican. Right, remember, nobody really knew about him until he ran for the Senate, even though he lost. They got him attention. So the Republicans choose Abraham Lincoln because Lincoln is kind of, he doesn't say, I want to get rid of slavery. He just wants to stop it spreading in the West, right? So he's like, I find slavery, I'm going to leave it alone, but I want to make sure that slavery doesn't spread into the western part of the United States. So the reason why he wins, by the way, is because the Democrats split. You have the Southern Democrats and the Northern Democrats. And so when you got Abraham Lincoln and the Republicans, and then everybody that would have voted Democrat is now split into two groups. So that's how Abraham Lincoln is able to win. In fact, it doesn't say on here, you could not even vote for Abraham Lincoln in the South. He wasn't even on the ballot. If you wanted to vote for Abraham Lincoln, you had to write in his name, which I wouldn't advise doing because they publish the results of who you voted for, and you probably would get beat up in the South if they found out you voted for Abraham Lincoln. But anyway, South Carolina, of course, leads the charge of secession. They decide to secede. That's why it's in black here. And 6 other states are going to join them. So if you look at the original Confederate flag, which I'll show you when we get to Civil War, it's got 7 stars on it. It's like, why 7? Because eventually, like 11 joined the Confederacy. It's because originally there were only 7, and then others joined. So, yeah, during his inaugural address, his speech, Lincoln just says, he doesn't say like look out south, I'm going to come get you, you're going to come back to he just says, guys, you can't secede, so stop it. Don't do it. He doesn't say I'm gonna drag you back in like during a war. He doesn't say anything like that. In fact, he says if we're gonna have a civil war, the South is going to be the one to start it. So he kind of leaves it up to the South, and sure enough, that's what's going to happen. But anyway, so there you have it. We're really close to the Civil War, which is my favorite. Anyway, that's it for day 4.